You mentioned rupture earlier. Right now, I think there's a lot of people being ruptured. So how do the tools that you teach go in there and help them with the rupture? You talked about childhood rupture, but there's people experiencing a rupture right now because of what you just discussed.
Oh, of course. Of course. There's activation in the system as we're having these conversations. And I think one of the most important things is to know that we are not the rupture. We are the space holder, the loving awareness that the rupture is existing within. And when we can tap into our spacious awareness and view the rupture through our loving hearts, it transcends it. It shifts it. It helps it amalgamate and move the timeline from this rupture that's 3 years old, that's angry at the world, into this, a 31-year-old who knows better. And when we turn away from those ruptures and when we turn away from them or we get thrown into them, we don't have perspective. We can't see things for what they are. We see them as they are. So we're viewing the world through the lens of an immature part of us that is wounded and sad. And so when we can turn towards these ruptures, a 3-year-old rupture, a 4-year-old rupture, and actually get with what it needs, what is the medicine, what is the remedy, what is the energetic blueprint that this particular rupture needs, we can begin to really alkalize that rupture and soften it and smooth it out so that we have more flow, more energetic flow in the system. If we are holding in our systems all of these ruptures that have all different types of maturity levels that all get triggered from so many different things, we are going to be walking around triggered at everything. Fuck that person, fuck the system, fuck Trump, fuck Biden, fuck this. Like, we're going to constantly do that. But when we give those parts of us what they need, which is just our loving presence, our awareness, when we reparent those parts of us because they didn't get the parenting that they so needed when they were younger, then we can begin to smooth out the edges. And then life becomes a little less chaotic. We are not so gripped on reality and projecting our needs onto other people and other things. You know,
there's a big place that you're talking about between there's the danger of spiritually bypassing or actually being your trigger. There's a space in the middle. So there's like spiritual bypassing and you actually identifying with your trigger. What is that space for you, at least?
So the space there for me is being beside the wound, not in the wound. Fully feeling it and also feeling it from awareness. So I'm going to break this down for people because this is more of like an experience than it is a teaching. So when I get triggered, I'm like, I feel it in my gut, right? Like right in my solar plexus. I'm like, I feel like I've been punched. Like, it's right there. My ego, my mind is like, let's distract that. Let's get into work. Let's overperform. Let's go for a run. Is there some brownies in the fridge? Let's get rid of this. Right?
Let me clean my carpet.
Let me clean my carpet.
Let me organize my closet. Like anything at all but the thing.
Surely there's a toilet around here that needs to be cleaned, right? Yeah. So when I bring myself into my heart and I view my trigger from my heart, I'm viewing it and I'm beside it. I'm fully feeling the trigger, but I'm viewing it from the lens of the heart. So I'm not in it. I have awareness of it. Therefore, I'm not in it. And so when we hold that spaciousness and we know that I'm not going to identify with it, I'm going to observe it. I'm not going to identify with it. I'm going to observe it. Then we have the wisdom and the intelligence to know what it actually needs. Okay, well, what was it about that thing that happened that activated me so much? Because every trigger is a deepening moment. I can go, all right, well, this person did this and it activated me. So what did I make that mean? I made it mean that I don't belong. I made it mean that I'm not worthy. I made it mean that I'm falling behind. I made it mean that I'm not good enough, whatever it is. Okay, well, is that true? No. What do you really need? How can I really support you? And we get in dialogue with these parts of us. Because if we don't get in dialogue with these parts of us and we don't have the knowing that we can soothe these parts of us, we're going to project them out onto someone else. Therefore, we give our power away to someone else. And that person needs to do something very specific in accordance to our expectations in order to soothe this ruptured part.
A big piece of this is childhood because Whether you look at Gabor Mate's work or Bessel van der Kolk's work or Bruce Lipton's work, I mean, fill in the blank. Even some of what Mel Robbins teaches, right? Mm-hmm. Every single person, whether contemporary or ancient, from a mastery standpoint, don't you feel like they're all saying essentially the same thing? And that is how you are parented and what you go through. By the way, in utero and also the first 7 years, literally shapes the dendrites, the axons, the things in your brain. So essentially, to unpack what you said, and I'd love your vantage on this, we are running fucking programs on everyone. I'm running a program on the public. I'm running a program on news media. I'm running a program and I'm shooting my program out there. That's the projection. But if I am in harmony with my program and I can like love my program and maybe laugh at my program sometimes, then like you said, I'm beside the wound. I'd love for you to expand on what you think these programs are and where exactly do they even come from? Are they generational? Are they 5D? Like, whoa. I mean, it's a big question.
Mm-hmm. I think there's many different ways that we are programmed. And I love how you're speaking of, in the embryo, right? Our mother's conditioning, our mother's beliefs, our mother's way of seeing the world is we are baking in that for the first 9 months of our lives. And then we come into a world and we're trying to find our way in the world. And we are going to embody what is reflected back to us, whatever that looks like. And I don't think every person on the planet is a stable parent. Like, why is there no IQ test for this shit? Like, it's a big deal to raise a kid.
Yes, it is.
And when it's a miss, when our needs are not met, we then develop ruptures and protectors. So if we reach and we are not received, we will develop a protector that says, my needs don't matter. I'm going to take care of myself. Right. And then we just keep perpetuating that our entire life. And if that's our story, that's our narrative, that's what we're used to, we're going to keep creating scenarios that validate and give that condition, that program, evidence, because we just want to be right. We're more concerned about being right than we are about being happy. And that's the friggin' truth, unless you decide differently. So we're going to keep validating and validating these experiences and these programs that we have that were created when we were 3 years old. So we're fighting for things that we don't even want. And I find myself getting caught up in these patterns too, still now. I have to be very aware of it. Why am I fighting for this? Why does this matter so much? Oh, this matters to the part of me that's 4 years old. 4 years old. All right, Sammy Whammy, let's pull up our socks and make this decision from a 31-year-old integrated person, not a 4-year-old. But that's wisdom. And that takes a long time to get with, because my ego wants to believe that this is the truth, even though it's the agenda of my 4-year-old. And so it really is looking at it from a bird's eye view to say, okay, there's conditioning that came from my mom being in growing in her belly. There's conditioning from a very young age of my caretakers, whether that was mom, dad, or grandparents or whoever. Mm-hmm. And then there is the systemic way of the way the world does things that is constantly being reflected back to us. And we're constantly being pushed into like these timelines and these narratives and the things that we should do. And then we keep following that and we get farther and farther and farther and farther and farther away from our soul's curriculum, what we came here to do and our gifts, that we just conformed what we should do based on all of these programs that are already in the world.